Thank you. I represent television about Germany. You talked about a possible meeting between President Putin and President Trump. What role can the European Union and Germany play in possible negotiations on the resolution of the Ukrainian conflict?
Together with France, when they acted as a guarantor, as Chancellor Merkel and President Hollande told us. They told us that the Minsk agreements, which were developed in the Belarusian capital for almost 20 hours, where I had the honor to be present, and which were concluded between Russia and Ukraine, Germany and France.
Присутствовать, и которые были заключены между Россией, Украиной, Германией и Францией.
This is a peace treaty between Moscow and Kyiv, and we, the Germans and the French, are the guarantors of this treaty. We interpreted the status of the participants in a different way, but the position of Germany and France was, we are the guarantors. Here we have seated you, you have agreed, we are the guarantors. We took this paper, the Minsk Agreements, to the UN Security Council, which unanimously approved it and demanded that these Minsk Agreements be implemented. Further, I will not list hundreds, thousands of violations by the Kyiv regime, including bombing of peaceful objects, including the total blockade of those territories that refused to recognize the coup.
Включая блокаду тотальную вот тех территорий, которые отказались признать госпереворот.
It was all regular. All this was regularly sent to the UN, to the OSCE. Germany and France answered us. We say, you are the guarantors, let's stop this outrage. They say, well, you're shooting something there too, you're helping them there, these rebels. But last year, after retiring, Angela Merkel said, no, no one was going to fulfill these agreements. Neither we, nor France, nor President Poroshenko at that time, who signed these documents. We just needed to win a few years to better prepare Ukraine for war. This is to the question of what the Yalta-Potsdam system is, enshrined in the UN Charter, where Article 25 says the decision of the Security Council is mandatory for all UN members. But Chancellor Merkel said, yes, there is no need for me to be guided by this. This is despite the fact that she was one of the parties to this document. And a declaration of 4 countries was attached to this document, Russia, Ukraine, Germany, and France, where it was said about a single space from Lisbon to Vladivostok, that we will build it all. That France and Germany will help Donbas to establish mobile banking. They have done nothing at all to help lift the blockade, and they have also done nothing to solve it. They will organize negotiations to resolve gas transportation issues, to help Russia and Ukraine in this area. They didn't do anything. Therefore, with all due respect to the history of the German people, I believe that they have already made their contribution through the administration of Chancellor Merkel. You know, Putin never refuses offers to make contact. Scholz called him a couple of times, they talked recently, and Olaf Scholz was, in general, proud of having accomplished such a feat. But there were several conversations with some other representatives of the European Union. But when, I hope, the President will not scold me very much, I do not give out secrets. It's just that in a conversation with Putin, the same Scholz did not say anything that he would not say publicly every second day.
Я не выдаю секреты, просто в разговоре с Путиным вот тот же Шольц не сказал ничего из того, чего он не говорил бы публично каждый второй день.
You have to leave. Russian, not a word about the root causes, not a word about the Russian language, the rights of Russians, which Zelensky wants to take for himself. Although, in fact, Zelensky, I have already quoted him back in the 21st year before the special operation, said, "If you feel like a Russian in Ukraine, then get lost in Russia for the good of your children." Russian Matt was just used recently to indicate his attitude towards a number of peacekeepers who do not want to expel the Russians on the border of the 91st year. The adequacy of this citizen. This is a separate issue. Many offer their services, and Turkey, which has already been a place where an agreement was reached practically. Not practically, but was achieved and initialed. Boris Johnson, who has now started writing something again, some books, forbade signing the contract, on the basis of the principles agreed in Istanbul. There were a series of meetings in Belarus, and President Lukashenko, we appreciate it, reiterated that as direct neighbors of Russia and Ukraine, of course, he proceeds from the fact that the interests of Belarus should be taken into account. And in general, understanding is growing. Why there was such broad support, such wide interest, in talking about a phone call, and then about a meeting between the presidents of Russia and the United States. Everyone just realized that. Or rather, they understood it for a long time, now they just began to admit it, that it's not about Ukraine, but the fact that Ukraine is being used as they wanted, and is being used now in order to weaken Russia in the context of our place, Russia's place, in the European security system. There are two aspects here. First of all, of course, the threats on the western flank, on our western borders, must be eliminated, as one of the main first reasons. They can probably be eliminated only in the context of some broader agreements. We are ready to discuss security guarantees in the same country, which is now called Ukraine, or part of this country, which has not yet self-determined in any way, unlike Crimea, Donbas, and Novorossiya. But with all the importance of this aspect of security, the Eurasian context, it will be dominant, because it is impossible for the western part of the continent to isolate itself from such giants as China, India, Russia, the Persian Gulf, South, the whole of South Asia. There are hundreds of millions of people, Bangladesh, Pakistan.
Персидский залив, вся Южная Азия, там сотни миллионов людей, Бангладеш, Пакистан.
And it is necessary to equip the continent in such a way that the affairs in its central part, in Central Asia, in the Caucasus, in the Far East, in the Taiwan Strait, in the South China Sea are decided by the countries of the region, and not by Stoltenberg, who says, "Here we will work there, because NATO's security depends on the Indo-Pacific region." How does it depend on it? He really said that. He was asked, "Is NATO still a defensive alliance?" He says yes, he is a defensive alliance. We are defending the territory of our members. But the security of the territory of our members in modern conditions depends on security in the Indo-Pacific region. So we will deploy NATO infrastructure there. We will create alliances there. He is a US-South Korea military alliance with a nuclear component. They have recently confirmed this. And so on and so forth. This is also an interesting moment for political scientists to think about how to combine all this. Because the Euro-Atlantic approach to the whole of Eurasia, I assure you, It is.
Я заверяю вас, это
This is an illusion.
иллюзия.